That technological myth maybe wasn't going to come true. Another myth, as I got into high school, that we were taught was that computers and robots were going to make our adulthood different than our parents', that it was going to be possible for us to eliminate drudgery in the home and in the workplace. People weren't going to have to work on assembly lines anymore and push buttons. That our lives, in fact, we were told that what we should do is get good at filling up our leisure time, because we were going to have to experience leisure, have a good income to pay for it with, and extra hours with which to enjoy ourselves. Well, the rain and the poverty that's fallen on the Kootenays has made it clear that that technology did not bring us wealth and leisure time. It's creating a situation where a few people have to work real hard in fierce competition for a reasonably low wage, and everybody else has so much leisure time that they can't even create the wealth that they need to feed themselves. The technology that our era has grasped and put to use to make money is not being used to make stable communities. It's not being used to make stable families. It's not being used to create a better era for our children. It is being used and abused to centralize power, to centralize wealth, and to create a tremendous number of absolutely redundant working people in Canada. This is the third meeting like this that I've attended. The first one in the East Kootenay, the audience was full of coal miners. You may be aware that technology in the forest industry and in the mining and smelting industries is eliminating hundreds, Joe would say thousands of jobs in the Kootenays. Not to say the impact of Northeast coal on the people of the Cranbrook area. In the Cranbrook area, the issue was also BC Tel, because there it's 70 jobs in the next whack that BC Tel wants to take out of the community. The next meeting about jobs in the Kootenays that I attended was in Castlegar, and there the issue was the construction industry, because we have thousands of construction workers in the West Kootenay who over the last couple of decades have made their living building for the coal industry and the hydro industry, which has been not phased out but just eliminated, so that there's locals, union locals of 400 people with no people working. Now tonight, the issue ostensibly, or the organization that brings us together, is the telephone workers, because they're about to lose $1 million payroll from Nelson. But I don't really think that it's the coal miners' problem, and I don't think it's the carpenters' problem, and I don't think it's the BC Tel workers' problem. I don't really think it was the professors' problem or the students' problem when they emptied this building. I don't think it was the sawmillers and the plywood workers' problem when they emptied the building down at the bottom of the hill. I don't think it was the fault or the problem of the forest rangers when they closed all the ranger stations, and I don't really think it was the bad adult education teachers' fault when they shut down adult education courses and centers around the Kootenays. What I'm trying to get at with all this rhetoric is that it's all of our problem. If you take $1 million payroll out of this town, it's the shopkeeper's problem. If it means that my house is no longer worth anything and then I have to move, I don't get enough to go relocate and go live somewhere else. So it's my problem. It is not okay for those of us who will be employed when these phone workers are gone to think that it didn't hurt us or that it's not our issue. And as far as I'm concerned, we have to stop meeting this way. It is not okay to go on dealing with these issues one at a time, one sector of workers or students or young people at a time, one institution at a time. One at a time, the community comes apart, and then somebody stands up here 5 years later and says the total is 15,000 jobs in less than a decade out of this area. In order to stop dealing with it issue by issue and group by group, I think we have to try and get some handle, some analysis on what's happening, some overall picture. on what is happening to our region that we can apply to all of the communities. I remember when Castlegar and Nelson used to argue for who got the brand new police station, who got the alcohol program, who got the latest government investment. I remember when the East and the West Kootenay competed with one another and perceived that they didn't have things to do with one another. It is time for some analysis that all of southeastern British Columbia is now sharing a singular experience. It may be unpleasant, but at long last we have a great deal in common, no matter where we live or what we do for a living. I think it would also be a good idea that if we recognize that we have something in common with our ancestors. This kind of event has happened before. In the last century, it was the Industrial Revolution. They invented the machines and made hundreds and thousands of workers redundant in Europe, and those are the people who settled North America. Previously in this century, it was the Green Revolution, the diesel engine and the fertilizer industry, and they emptied farmlands in Canada. It became possible for farming as an industry to eliminate the human component, and they emptied hundreds of communities on the prairies in this country. And those people went to the cities. But now North America's been settled with those laid-off workers from the Industrial Revolution, and the cities are stuffed with the displaced of the agricultural change, and there is no place for the next revolution, the technological revolution. There is no place for those people to go. We have reached the end of this continent in all directions. And there are some people who say we will invent a new kind of place to stuff those people. A free trade zone, we will call it. And we will compete with the people in Seoul and the people in Hong Kong. We no longer have real jobs to offer you. We will sell your cheap labor on the world's market. It is not acceptable. We won't go. Those of us who are still here will keep this community together because this is the last healthy place for our culture. I think we need to recognize that high tech is going to go on making sawmillers and miners and secretaries and telephone workers' jobs and postal workers' jobs redundant. They're going to keep inventing machines to replace us, and we can't smash up the machines because it's saying we would smash up the future. What we need is a community, and dare I say it, a government with some vision about how to use that technology to feed the communities and how to employ our people here in the communities in which we choose to live. If it's possible, by pushing a button in a phone company or for BC Hydro or for the government to transfer information from Vancouver to the Kootenays to raise and lower the levels of the dams or to answer your telephone, then it's just as possible for people working here to raise and lower the levels of the water in Vancouver or to answer their telephone. Technology could go two directions. But I'm not in competition with the working people of Vancouver for their job. I am not suggesting that we turn the technology around and we empty the cities, or wherever it is you want to go, Kamloops or wherever. I'm not in competition with those people. I think we need policies that say the services that generate wealth to a private business or to a crown corporation shall be delivered from inside the area where the people spend the money. And that will be a policy. And when technology is available to make things better, we will use that technology to make it better inside the region. To make it so I can have a private line for less than $50 and I can talk to my neighbors the same as they do in Vancouver. We will employ the people inside the regions to stabilize those regions. Think of how we could do it. If the Forest Service made the same policy, then they wouldn't say all the maps will be drawn by a computer in Victoria. They would have people here drawing maps. They would, instead of buying 14 million trees a year on the market for this region. We'd be growing them here and creating 100 jobs for people to raise those trees. Instead of emptying this building and saying it's cheaper and somehow more efficient to educate my children 400 miles away from me, we would be educating our people where they live. Because there is no other alternative. We do not want to live in barrios. We do not want our children selling cheap labor on the streets of Vancouver. It is not healthy. It may make bigger profits for some people to remove from this area, but in terms of this society, the social cost to government for that kind of society would outweigh any savings that technology could offer by stripping the communities. I think we need a government and a community that says we will fight together to decentralize decision-making and jobs in this province to the level of the good, safe, stable communities where the people choose to live, and we will advertise British Columbia to the rest of Canada as a good place to work and a good place to retire, and they will see us here. And we must say, no more can you strip our communities and make ghost regions out of the rural areas of British Columbia. We do have something in common with the farmer in Creston and the coal miner in East Kootenay. We will sit, I hope, when I'm through talking, and quit this. This is not a dialogue. This is a bunch of people talking words at you. What we need to do is turn the tables around, let these guys who come from somewhere else sit with us and figure out how to make it stop. I submit that if any people are unwilling to partake in that conversation to find positive solutions, then they'll simply have to live with the net result of whatever the people do next. Thank you.
I'm glad you only took your 10 minutes. I'm reading to you a letter that's addressed to Bill Clark, President of the TWU, from Bob Briscoe. At a meeting with Castlegar City Council on April 22nd, the Mayor of the City of Castlegar provided me with a copy of your letter to her dated April 11th, 1986. Your letter expresses legitimate concerns over the future of the jobs of BC Tel employees in the Kootenays. In addition, seeks support for a joint study of the impact on technological change. I wish to go on record as both supporting and understanding that the concern which you have addressed, and as well indicate that to you that I would appreciate an update with reference to your complaint to the Ministry of Unemployment and Immigration after the fact for such a study. It is my view that the matter of job loss, for whatever reason, transcends political ideologies and political boundaries, and that it is incumbent on all of us to work collectively for the social and economic benefit of our constituents. Signed, Dorothy Gourley for Bob Briscoe. That concludes the formal portion of the meeting. We have, I suggest, a 5-minute break for those who would like to stretch and have a cigarette, and reconvene at 8:30. It's 5 minutes from now.
Can we come to order, please? There are 2 mics in the center court. And I would ask that anybody who wishes to speak or ask a question or direct a question, do it through the mics. That way we can ensure at least that everybody gets a fair opportunity.
No, we go sit in the audience. This is ridiculous.
The points of view have obviously been put to you from the head table, but this is your meeting. This is the town hall meeting. It's our intention, particularly from town hall, to listen. So I would invite anybody who had something that they'd like to either say or to to address one of the speakers to come forward.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question about jobs that could be created in this area through technological change. You know, a lot of things are happening technologically, so what kind of jobs could be created here for that way?
Are you directing the
Nobody in particular. Perhaps the gentleman from BC Tel could answer that for me.
I can try, and I suppose jobs that can be created are of the high-tech type, such as our Microtel or something like that. However, our Microtel arm of BC Tel decided to invest and set up shop close to the Simon Fraser University. And we have a development and research department there, and there are some valid reasons for those types of people locating adjacent to a full university. People who do research like to associate with a university. They have some compatibility with one another and exchange ideas, and they like to locate there. They probably would not want to move to the Nelson area. The other thing is the convenience of where they are, and perhaps an inconvenience for people traveling from other parts of the world to get into the area. Those are some of the drawbacks that are going to be faced in places like Nelson to develop that type of high-tech industry.
One of my complaints, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, yes.
See, one of the important things is that, you know, they're buzzwords, but we have to keep saying it because some of them are true. We have left the age of mechanization and the industrial age, and we are now in the information age. And more than 50% of the jobs are information related, and it's getting bigger. There is not one single reason why, if you measure the social costs that Corky talked about in the long run, against the job loss in the long run, why BC Hydro, BC Tel, ICBC, any major corporation that relies on clerical support staff and data processing and data storage cannot in this transition period start creating those kind of jobs here in West Coast. There isn't one reason in the world, I've said this at Cranbrook about Brother Giorgetti's problems up in jail with the steel workers. It's absolutely cruel to tell steel workers and their families that we'll move you to Ontario, where you can remain a steel worker forever. That's absolutely crazy. They should start retraining people in the areas that they live to do the jobs that can be put into the areas. It has to start somewhere. It is not impossible. And we have to start, this sounds esoteric, but we have to start measuring some human values. There's a big difference between economic growth and economic development. And what's happened in the Kootenays and the resource towns is there's been economic growth for 30 years while people hustle money out here, but there hasn't been any economic development or planning, and now we're paying those costs. And we should start doing that now. We should start demanding that senior levels of government put an end to this bloody nonsense. I don't want to get up any more tonight, so I want to tell one more story. It's not a privilege as such, but I got to do an hour and a half documentary on CBC with some people. And the title of the show was The Lost Generation. That show was about 65,000 young people in British Columbia between the ages of 15 and 24 that are registered for unemployment or welfare. The executive producers of that show told me off stage that they think there's probably another 20,000 that are living with their parents that aren't registered or in cheap housing or whatever with other friends. We need people that have got jobs now, and people of my generation have almost become intolerant of young people. We don't seem to give a sweet goddamn anymore what happens to them. And that is really going to cost us. Another 5 or 6 years of this, and there's going to be about 1 million loose cannons unemployed, wandering around Canada, and you won't think about what the cost of that is. There was a woman on that show with us, who's the head of the employment development programs in Vancouver for the federal government. And do you know what she said? They need to learn to write better resumes. They need better training. I thought, holy Christ, I'm involved with something from Monty Python and the Flying Circus. There's unemployed engineers and physicists that can't get work, and she's going to teach them how to write job resumes. Another guy from the YMCA thinks that if the kids could enter the workforce at $3.20 an hour, and the unions would get out of the way, somehow that would solve the problem. If we all went back to work for $3.50 an hour and lost our houses, somehow this is going to create jobs. The more I deal with professional people that get in these kind of jobs, the scarier I get. They don't know what the hell is going on. It's frightening. There was a Japanese economist on that show that's a visiting lecturer at UBC. And he said something that we should all think about. And we should never stop thinking about it. He said this couldn't happen in Japan. They don't blame unemployed workers and workers for unemployment. They take economics very seriously, that's what he said. And they plan government, capital, and labor. And he says, what a strange place this North America is. Governments and major corporations cannot plan what's going to happen in the economy for the next 5 or 6 years. But they expect an 18-year-old youth to get out of high school, make the right career choice, and if he's unemployed in 3 years, that's his fault. Okay? And I sat there and I listened to this Japanese lecturer saying that. And I said, he's right, we've all gone bloody mad. How can a 19-year-old coming into the workforce now plan what he's going to do for the next 25 years? What we need to do here tonight is perhaps what Corky just mentioned to me, is forget that we're sitting up here, turn it into a town meeting, you people come up to the mics and tell us what to do.
I would ask, because it is a town meeting, most of the people here may know some of the other people, that when you in fact ask a question or direct a question, you say who you are. We all know who these people are, but we don't necessarily know who you all are. So we just ask maybe that we said who you were. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Sandy Gilfillan. I'm an employee with BC Tel, and I'm one of the employees that's probably going to be relocated. I'm being relocated because we've got very strong contractual language that protects our jobs, that BC Tel has to offer us a job somewhere doing something. So I'm going to be working, but I'm probably not going to be working in Nelson, and that really bothers me because this is where I have chosen to live. And I'd like to direct a couple of comments to Mr. Swady. One of them is, perhaps you're not seeing too many other businesses here tonight, but you have to realize that BC Tel is probably the major private sector employer in this area. Number two, BC Tel has the right to set up their shop where they want to in the most economical way. I really disagree that moving the jobs out of this area is economically viable. We have problems with the accounts department has been centralized in the Vernon area. I get at least one call a day coming in. People have difficulty getting through to that area, getting through to those lines. The department doesn't really understand what's going on. It's hard for them to realize that it does in fact take 10 days for a telephone bill to reach wherever they are from Vancouver, where they're mailed. Some of the areas in this particular part of the province only get mail delivery twice a week. When we held the accounts department in this area, at least we were aware of that. We were aware of what was going on in the various parts of the community. You have business customers that have to deal with Kelowna, and it's certainly not the business accounts representative's fault, but it's hard for them to have an intimate knowledge of the areas that they're dealing with. They're asking them to be able to keep a finger on an area that's approximately 1/4 the size of the province, what's happening in terms of needs of those customers. Residents accounts customers face the same problems. We work in this area, we know this area, we know what's required, and when a customer phones in and they say that they live in the Appledale area or they live in Meadow Creek, we have a good working knowledge of where those people are. When you centralize, you're not going to provide better service for those customers. They get frustrated, they get angry, they get upset, and they don't understand. And they may be dealing with a service representative who doesn't even know where they are, let alone care. The other thing that I would like to make note of is that there are departments that have been centralized to Vancouver, which are really severely overworked, to the point where a lot of their work is contracted out. Closing accounts at one time was completely worked, and I'm talking about accounts that have been disconnected or discontinued, where the collections were completely done through BC Tel employees. They were doing that work. Nowadays, that work is being contracted out to collection agencies at a tune of 35% to 40%, depending on what the contract is with the collection agency. You have trained people in this area that can do that work, and what I would really like to challenge you upon is how much research did you do into relocating other work into this area that could be done from here?
You hear me?
Can you use that mic over there, please, so we can get it on tape?
Yeah, I want to.
First of all, by using the collection agencies, we have been using collection agencies for many, many years. We send to the collection agencies, that is our intention anyway, and once in a while perhaps we slip, but we send through the collection agencies those real difficult accounts that we're probably not going to collect. And we've been doing that for years, and we will probably continue to do that. Yes, that's contracted out. There's no change, whether it's set here, because you used to send stuff from the Nelson area, from Cranbrook area, to collection agencies also.
I'd just like to clarify one thing, Carl. I'm not talking about accounts that we've tried to collect for 4, 5, 6 months, or even 3, 8 months. I'm talking about accounts that have been out less than 1 month, that we haven't made any attempt to collect at all. So
Well, that happens. That is an error, because we should be trying to treat the accounts ourselves. If we use some judgment, we may find that that's what you call a real dud, and we'll send it here quickly. But you should work on it first and then send it to the collection agency, and that's what they're supposed to be doing down in the Vancouver group. And the same, the people in Vernon are doing that. As your second question, what was the study? The study says that by doing some centralization, that we can save a number of jobs and do it with a smaller workforce. And that is the crux of the whole thing. We can do the work of 7 people with 3, and that's why we're centralizing it to Kelowna.
what about the other 4 jobs that are protected? You have to offer us a job doing something somewhere.
That's right, and we do have a number of jobs, as you probably know, and I'm sure Bill Clark here knows, that we have been hiring this year. We have hired quite a number of clerical people in the Vancouver area, hired new employees off the street. We have hired new operators off the street. There are openings for every employee in BC Tel. And Bill well knows that we have hired people off the street.
No, Bill doesn't.
Are these permanent employees or are they temporary?
These are permanent employees. I sit on once a month. I go down to Vancouver and we have a staffing or manpower meeting, and we okay the hiring of people off the street.
Well, Bill, it looks like we may have an increase in our membership.
Yes, you will have an increase in your membership. We hired quite a number of operators. They were temporary, and we've made them permanent operators. There were jobs for everybody.
My name is Gordon Becker, member of the TW and BC Tel employee. It's a 2-part question to Mr. Smithson and Mr. Swady. With Nelson having the cheapest power in North America, why cannot BC Tel or other companies set up industries and processes that require lots of hydro in the Nelson area?
first of all, is the city trying to get industries up here that will create more industry that use lots of hydro? And same with BC Tel, I think they could, some of their manufacturing items could be brought up here for cheap power. Thank you.
I'll speak first by making Mr. Swady just finish. The city presently is trying to show a very encouraging stance towards any potential development for our city. We are open to any opportunities that are available, and with respect to the cheap power, the large amount of power, there are restrictions to what we can do under the Municipal Act. However, we now have a partnership agreement that permits us to offer incentives equal to anybody in the province. So that during the last year, approximately last year, we have certainly, I believe, changed our attitudes and our stance towards new development, and presently are working with and talking to some investors that are interested in locating in the Nelson area, not necessarily the big power user as you claim, but other interesting possibilities. So rather than answer your question about large power users, yes, we'd be interested in talking to those types of industry if they were available. We do offer an open door approach to any economic development within the city, and as a city council, we certainly are presently eager to talk with, and will talk with anybody that shows some interest in locating in our environment or our municipality. With respect